Penguin Random House Audio presents The Joy of Movement, How Exercise Helps Us Find Happiness, Hope, Connection, and Courage, by Kelly McGonigal. Dedication. To all the movement instructors who have inspired me, and to all those who have moved with me in classes over the years, thank you for sharing the joy. Introduction. There are very few memories I can look back on and say with certainty, that was a moment my life changed. One of them took place when I was 22. I was a graduate student in psychology and enrolled in a seminar called The Psychology of Shyness. I'd always been a shy kid, and I continued to struggle with anxiety. Our project for the course was to take action on something that was important to us, but that we had avoided out of fear or self-doubt. I chose to pursue my lifelong dream of becoming a group exercise instructor. I'd grown up doing workout videos in my living room, while other kids fantasized about becoming the next Sally Ride or Steven Spielberg. I imagined myself leading a room full of people in step touches and jumping jacks. In high school, I studied both Spanish and French because I'd read that you needed to speak 3 languages to teach aerobics at a Club Med resort. Now I found myself standing outside an exercise studio on campus, minutes away from auditioning to teach for the aerobics program. Despite having practiced for so many hours that I could perform the choreography in my sleep, familiar sensations of panic flooded my system. I felt sick to my stomach. My fingernails dug into my palms. This mattered so much to me. I thought my heart was going to burst. I was overcome by the desire to rescue myself from my escalating anxiety, to just walk away, go back to my apartment, and pretend the whole thing never happened. I remember this moment clearly, standing outside the studio, wanting to run, but choosing to stay. Maybe you've had a moment like this too, a turning point where you said yes to something that you both dreamed about and were terrified by. Looking back, I think one of the reasons I stayed was everything I'd learned about courage from my favorite forms of exercise. From yoga, I'd learned how to take a deep breath and stretch beyond my comfort zone. From dance, I'd learned that no matter how worried and discouraged I felt at the beginning of class, the music and movement would transport me to a state of optimism. And from my toughest cardio workouts, I had learned that a pounding heart is not always a sign of fear. Sometimes it is proof that your heart is being strengthened. The decision to stay and audition changed my life because it set me on the path of teaching group exercise. In the nearly 2 decades since, teaching has become a source of tremendous joy and meaning. Over the years, I saw again and again how movement could shift a person's mood, how it could send someone back into the world renewed with hope. I got to witness how exercise could empower participants to sense their own strength, or give them permission to let loose. As I taught individuals of all ages and varied physical abilities, I learned how movement could serve so many roles. It was a way to practice self-care, an opportunity to tackle challenges, and a place to make friends. Many of the classes I taught turned into communities that not only moved together, but also supported and celebrated one another. In these classes, I learned what collective joy feels like, in both the synchrony of our steps and in the group hugs when a participant returned after a long absence. Leading group exercise was so fulfilling that I never stopped. It wasn't just the satisfaction of sharing the joy of movement that kept me going. It was also how movement helped me. Exercise has, at various times in my life, rescued me from isolation and despair, fostered courage and hope, reminded me how to experience joy, and given me a place to belong. Mine is not an uncommon story. Around the world, people who are physically active are happier and more satisfied with their lives. This is true whether their preferred activity is walking, running, swimming, dancing, biking, playing sports, lifting weights, or practicing yoga. People who are regularly active have a stronger sense of purpose, and they experience more gratitude, love, and hope. They feel more connected to their communities and are less likely to suffer from loneliness or become depressed. These benefits are seen throughout the lifespan. They apply to every socioeconomic strata and appear to be culturally universal. Importantly, the psychological and social benefits of physical activity do not depend on any particular physical ability or health status. They have been demonstrated in people with chronic pain, physical disabilities, serious mental and physical illnesses, and even among patients in hospice care. The joys I just described, from hope and meaning to belonging, are linked first and foremost to movement, not to fitness. The question of how physical activity contributes to human happiness is the central focus of this audiobook. I started by scouring the science, skipping the countless surveys that show that people who exercise are happier, and searching instead for studies and theories that could shed light on why. I pored through academic papers in fields as wide-ranging as neuroscience, paleontology, and musicology. I talked to anthropologists, psychologists, and physiologists. I interviewed athletes and exercise professionals. I visited places where people move together, gyms, dance studios, parks, even an aircraft carrier. I devoured memoirs and studied ethnographies to better understand the role that movement has played across cultures and history. I expanded my search to include the writings of philosophers and religious scholars. I downloaded podcasts and joined groups on social media. I reached out to friends, family, and strangers and asked them to share their experiences of movement. After nearly every one of these interviews, I found myself re-listening to some part of the recorded conversation, not just to check my notes, but because I wanted to hear their stories again. Many of the individuals I spoke with were brought to tears as they explained what movement meant to them. By the third time I found myself typing, she teared up while telling me about this. I realized these were tears of joy, and the joy of movement is moving. One of the first things I discovered is that the most common explanation for why exercise makes us happy is far too simplistic. The psychological effects of movement cannot be reduced to an endorphin rush. Physical activity influences many other brain chemicals, including those that give you energy, alleviate worry, and help you bond with others. It reduces inflammation in the brain, which over time can protect against depression, anxiety, and loneliness. Regular exercise also remodels the physical structure of your brain to make you more receptive to joy and social connection. These neurological changes rival those observed in the most cutting-edge treatments for both depression and addiction. The mind-altering effects of exercise are even embedded in your musculature. During physical activity, muscles secrete hormones into your bloodstream that make your brain more resilient to stress. Scientists call them hope molecules. Looking at the evidence, it's hard not to conclude that our entire physiology was engineered to reward us for moving. But why would human biology be so finely tuned to encourage us to be active? A reasonable first guess might have to do with the health benefits of exercise. Perhaps the brain is looking out for the body, making sure we stay active enough to ward off a heart attack. Yet this notion takes too brief a historical perspective on the value of physical activity to human survival. Your doctor might encourage you to exercise to better control your blood sugar, lower your blood pressure, or reduce your risk of cancer. But for most of human existence, the central purpose of movement was not to prevent disease. Physical activity was how we engaged with life. As neuroscientist Daniel Walpert writes, the entire purpose of the human brain is to produce movement. Movement is the only way we have of interacting with the world. This is why our biology includes so many ways to reward moving. At the most fundamental...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?